Hello, everyone. We are Forge Cinema, and welcome to our final presentation. I'm Garrett Kerr, the project manager and one of the VFX artists for this team.
My name's Tyler Brown. I was also a visual effects artist and a compositor.
I'm Scott Yarling. I'm a VFX artist, and I worked on web presence.
And I'm Bailey Supernuts, and I'm the public marketing head and a compositor.
So, when we originally began this project, we set out with the plan to research, analyze, and solve some of the problems that visual effects students run into while they're trying to learn about more complex concepts. Having been novices in VFX ourselves, we know how hard it is to find tutorials that adequately explain topics and are not outdated. Most VFX tutorials that we found were either on old software, lacking explanations, or were too costly for a student's budget. We wanted to be able to help alleviate some of these difficulties by creating our own tutorials. In addition to creating the tutorials, we also were interested in creating new effects to improve our portfolios. Once we decided that we would make tutorials to help students, we planned to make 3 different videos, each with tutorials to accompany any effect we used. Unfortunately, we had to make some changes to our plan and ended up only making one video together as a group. In addition to the one big group video, we ended up making 4 effect videos individually. These individual tutorials are on a smaller scale than our group project, simply because of the amount of work that it would take to go into each of them. Here you can see our original Gantt chart from the start of the project that allotted time for us to make 3 separate VFX videos as a team. Obviously, once COVID-19 became more prevalent, we had to make some changes that we'll discuss in our later slides. This is our original pipeline, another part of the project that had to be revised due to COVID-19. It works well overall, but we eliminated step 6 to narrow our focus. We wanted to get feedback on the tutorials and try to improve them for the future, but we decided that we needed to dedicate time to creating our own individual effects instead of creating and sending out surveys.
So, first, I'm going to talk about the first video that we created while we were still at school at Purdue during the semester. So, during the first video, we took steps to prepare before we started working on filming and the effects. The stuff that we worked on for post-production was that we first created a summary of the video. So we went through a process of brainstorming ideas of what kind of video we wanted to do and what effects could be done based on the premise of that video. So we came up with the idea of the elemental bowling. And after that, we went into writing a script for the video. And once that script was finished, we went straight into drawing a storyboard. That way we would have visual representations of what the effects might look like and what the shots might look like, kind of as a guideline. During this preparation, we also worked on props and research. So Garrett looked in several different places looking for an available bowling alley that we could film our video in. So we also searched for extra actors that we might need, props. We worked on a props list to make sure that we have them for filming. We looked for camera equipment and tripods. And we also got lav mics so that we could record the audio. So once we were all prepared for filming the video, the next step was to execute on that. So this involved us filming at PMU over the course of several weeks. We did it several weeks because we only got time to do once a day per week. So it took us a couple of tries to get all the footage that we needed. And then we divided up the effect shots and the compositing to each group member to work on their own isolated effect. We created those effects, and then we finally composited the video together in one final video. So obviously when it comes to making videos and effects, you're going to catch mistakes that you didn't catch at the beginning of the project. Some of these mistakes that we had was lighting and exposure. There are some shots in the background where it's very dark and fuzzy, where we obviously could have used some more lighting. This would require us to probably bring some lights for our next shooting and video so that we don't run into that same problem. We ran into issues with timing to film. because we had some miscommunications with the people who were letting us use the bowling alley. We thought we had a lot more time for filming than what we actually had. So the time to film was very long because we could only go there once a week, and we only had about an hour and a half each time we were there. And then another mistakes was to make sure that you test the audio. Some audio sounds a little doesn't sound bad, but there's a lot of background noise that you can hear, and so testing the audio before to make sure we had the audio settings right would be another important step. So the changes that we'd make to accompany that essentially would be make sure we have access to lights and ways to diffuse the light if there's too much exposure. Make sure we have enough time to film beforehand, and then test the audio equipment beforehand as well.
All right, now I'll go over what we had planned for our second video project. So essentially, we're going to do a short on the Starship robots taking over Purdue's campus. We're going to do 3D models, one of the starships, and duplicate them around multiple scenes to simulate essentially an army of robots turning against Purdue students and taking away students in all aspects of life and becoming the new students on campus. We would have highlighted multiple effects like HDRI lighting, 3D animation, 3D tracking, and compositing. And it would have been a great time and a great way to display our knowledge of effects and editing to our audience and sponsors. And we had begun preparations to attain filming equipment and reaching out to actors and the company that owns and runs Starship Robots to see if it was okay if we did this and posted it online. We were also going to film with a Red camera, which I personally have been learning how to use with our mentor, Doug Osmond. Red cameras are currently what most Hollywood films are shot on, and it would have been a great experience to use that on our set for our short, along with lighting and necessary cords and all that stuff.
Thanks to COVID-19, we no longer had access to several resources we were using. In terms of filming, we could no longer gather to film due to social distancing, and some of us had to move home. Even if we could film at locations, they were likely to be closed. Additionally, we lost access to Purdue Lab computers, which threw a large wrench to our plans. Attempting to connect remotely to the plan became unreliable and unsustainable, and some of our own machines suffered from a lack of power and connectivity. COVID-19 also took away access to equipment such as the Red camera, which, as previously stated, we were looking forward to using, and the lavalier microphones, which made it very easy to record audio. Lastly, all work towards our second video effect became halted and wasted, as it was impossible to complete under our current conditions. This required us to reevaluate what our deliverables had to be. Once classes became canceled, we scheduled a meeting with our client Carlos and formulated a new plan. Since we couldn't work together, the remainder of our work would be done individually. This meant that the large tutorials 2 and 3 were scrapped and replaced with a total of 4 smaller tutorials. Since we couldn't do quality, we moved more towards quantity. We also decided to remove the survey and feedback session from our deliverables for 2 reasons. Firstly, COVID-19 changed our ability to finish our first video effect in a reasonable time due to a lack of resources. And secondly, any feedback we would receive could not be applied to a series of videos, as we were all producing the individual effect videos independently and simultaneously.
So here are the 4 effects and videos we made. I did a set extension in my backyard on my dock. You can see the mountain there on the top left.
I demonstrated how to composite a flame onto a finger.
I did a simple fracture tutorial in Houdini.
And I worked on how to rotoscope different elements out and how to mask, and also how to use a jump cut to have things look like they're coming in and out of the video. And the link below, you'll be able to check out our YouTube channel, which also contains all the effects that we made, and the tutorials will also be on there as well.
So what did we learn? The first thing we learned was how to plan. Key concepts such as leaving room for the unexpected and preparing for the worst and prep work became an integral part of our process. The Gantt chart really let us visualize our timeline and stay on track, so that was super helpful. We also learned that communicating with our client was very important, especially when something as unexpected as COVID happens. And together we were able to revise our deliverables in a way that works best for both of us. Lastly, we learned that using well-defined roles can keep everybody on track and focused for appropriate priorities. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed listening, and we look forward to hearing from your feedback.